a special live this week. We're going to be talking into the tantric path to mothering, which is something we actually haven't spoken into for quite a while, and now seems to be the time. And it just happens that Raven has just arrived at her daughter's house, Sadell. So you all get to meet Sadell. Welcome, Sadell.
Everyone.
This is my beautiful daughter. You can hear me all right, Tara? The connection's weak. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
We can hear you. Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking back today, actually, the first time I met you, Raven, is the first time I met you, Sadell, at a tantric women's circle. And I had no idea what that was, but I thought I need to go to that, and was blown away at the fact that your 12-year-old, I think you were about 12 years old at the time, Sadell, was sitting there listening to teachings around relationships, around sensuality, around communication, around boundaries. And I was like, oh my God, like this is it. When a mother has a daughter who's sitting there genuinely interested in this and participating in these types of discussions, then something's being done right in this household and in this family and through this teacher. So here we are, full circle. And I've been very blessed to be, witness to you, Sadell, in the last 8 years growing up, and then your brother Jaleb as well. And yeah, you guys are both two of the most phenomenal human beings I know. And sometimes I forget you're, children compared to your mums and my age. So yeah, would just love to open the space for you, Raven, to share what that journey is. Sadell will bring you in and ask you some questions. There's a bunch of questions coming through as well that we'll get to. So opening the floor for you, my dear.
Yeah, I was feeling into this live on the way here. It's a 1-hour drive, which we get sad about.
Very sad.
And, like really feeling at the core of, outside of tools and practices and advice that I have for mothers, which I definitely will be sharing some of that. I think the most important part of being a good parent, and what I've always tried to do, is to be vulnerable about my infallibility and my imperfections, and to always say to Sadell, I'm doing the best I can. It's not always what you need, and I'm sorry for that. Or, if she says to me, how are you, Mum? I actually tell her. I'm like, this happened, or I'm wonderful. Or so authenticity is so key. Not trying to be some perfect parent, trusting that your child's chosen you for a reason and they actually want you and your soul. And I feel like I've always spoken to my kids not as if they're beneath me or inferior anyway or need me to teach them. Actually, they're both my best teachers. And whilst when they were younger, I always, when I spoke to them, went down to their eye level so I could really connect. I never changed my expression for them. I wouldn't talk to them like adults, like there would be discernment, but kind of like adults. And even when Sadell was pre-verbal, I would tell her everything that I was doing. I'm going to change your nappy now. And everyone thought I was crazy, but I've just always respected her and what she's needed and wanted. And I've never been the type of mum to say, be polite, or, I've given her freedom to say what she thinks and feels. And then the other part of it, along with the authenticity, the vulnerability, the continual revealing that I'm not perfect, is that actually she's here to connect with divine. She's here to connect with spirit. She's here to connect with divine mother and divine father, as well as me. And it's beautiful that she has this biological mother, but my greatest task as a human being and as a mother is to let divine flow through me and to support my kids to feel that connection to spirit. So, there's been annoying parts of that, like me playing mantra through the house. And
I have accepted the mantra now. It took a while.
And, tangible things like incense and quotes and, you know, all that stuff, ecstatic dancing, but also the intangible of just supporting her to find her own way. And actually, and I'll let her share more about this, she was really in this world with me, coming to retreats. She was homeschooled. And then naturally she backed away from that. And she's always been really into animals. So she immersed herself in horses and nature and shied away from spirituality. But I trusted that process. And actually she sat with plant medicine, and that's what reconnected her to spirit. And I think that as parents, it's always important to remember that they're going to find their own way, and that it's their connection to spirit and your own connection to spirit that forms the bedrock almost of the most beautiful relationship possible that a child can have with themselves and with you. So that's more of a kind of mystical outlook on being a mother, and then I'll go into tools and practices. But yeah, I'd love for you to share, I guess, what supported you in your life from having me as a mother, and the things that you've felt in terms of freedom of expression and boundaries and whatever you feel like sharing.
I think the biggest thing, like the best part of having you as a mum, was how you always encourage us to fully be expressed in our authenticity, and all our emotions were fully accepted most of the time, and then we reminded you if they weren't. And just the freedom to be exactly who we wanted to be was so different to what so many people get. And I think that's really helped to Caleb and I to both be the people we are now, and so authentic in our expression. And yeah, when I was very into the whole spiritual thing with mum when I was younger, and I was doing homeschooling and doing all her stuff, and then it just started to feel a bit forced on me. And that was the deal, was that I had to do the spiritual work if I was going to be homeschooled. And I started to not want to do it. And instead of continuing to force me, because that's the deal we made, she let me follow what was true and authentic to me. And then, you know, years went on, and I met a friend who kind of re-sparked my interest in it. And then a few months after that, I did a plant ceremony, and I just remember getting this calling that was like, this is my path. Like, I was sitting there and there was sacred geometry going on and everything, and I just had this like resounding voice be like, this is what you need to be doing. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And yeah, she reminded me when she said allowing them to have their emotions and them reminding me when they didn't. It was always so funny. If ever Sadell was upset, or Caleb, and I would say, hey, you don't have to be upset, you know, we can, and try to make them feel better. I'm allowed to be upset, or I'm allowed to be mad, or whatever it was. One particular time that really stands out in my mind was not that long ago. A couple of years ago, I said to Sadell, look, we can't live on land anymore with your horses. I need to prioritize where your brother wants to live now. He's going to school in Fremantle. We're moving there, and you need to understand that this is what's happening, and it's time to prioritize him. And she was just so upset. And I said, Sadell, like, this is a fair enough thing. I've prioritized you all your life. She's like, Mum, you've only just told me the news. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be sad. And you either just need to be okay with that, or not talk to me until I'm okay. I'm like, okay.
You taught me a lot about setting boundaries, so not a problem.
You're very good at that. You are very good at that. And I it's like, yeah, I just love how clear you are in your expression. And now you're working with the academy and with me, and it's just so easy to work with you and to have a friendship with you, because you know that what you say you mean, you know. And it's just it's so beautiful to see that reflected in just the way that you naturally live your life. And I think another reflection, go for it.
Okay. No, you go.
Oh, just another reflection as you guys were sharing, I think, is I think so many parents can enforce a certain education on their children, and that really is what blew me away, because I was a big part of seeing that process unravel when Sadell said that she didn't want to be part of mainstream school. And that trusting in your daughter's truth and what she needed, rather than like, well, no, you can't be homeschooled, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And the same with Jayla, really, like, you listen to your children and you trust them and you follow through with action, which is beautiful.
Thanks, Tara. And thanks for your part in that, and your beautiful ex-husband, Antosh, making the homeschooling possible.
Yeah.
Sadell's work, very fond memories of that time. Yeah, and a lot of other parents will say to me, how did you show her how to express herself so freely? And how did you teach her how to have boundaries? And really, it's children learn mostly through imitation. So when I am a no to something, I'm a no. When there's some place inside of me that needs to follow my heart, even if it meant that Sadell wasn't happy with it, I'm like, I need to do this. My soul's feeling called. So she's learned to follow her soul because she's witnessed that, as well as, the uniqueness of her own spirit. And yeah, I think as I was learning boundaries, I was getting clearer and clearer. And as I'm learning how to feel my emotions and expressing and releasing. So, there was one time I picked the kids up from school and I was so fucking angry and I hadn't expressed and released. And Sadell just turned to me and said, "Oh, would you do some hand screams or something, Mum?" Just like,
I'm sick of this. Get it out. Go on.
And it's beautiful to feel her now, telling me about the processes that she has and clearing her emotions before she has conversations with her partner. And yeah, I'm so proud of her, and I'm also so happy to see that she doesn't have to go through a lot of the suffering I went through. It's her first relationship, and she's already processing her own emotional body. She's communicating what she needs rather than, coming down on him. And even though she's not perfect and no one's perfect, she really has an amazing foundation. And I think that's what all of our kids need. And where they learn that primarily is definitely through imitation. And I think both the kids had a whole new learning when I got together with Matisse. And they started to witness me really being met with someone else who's as committed to the inner work and who's actually even more evolved than me in some areas of communication. The way he can so gently call me on my shit and say, "Hey, can you speak to me with love?" And the kids hearing that. So I guess this is me saying to the mothers out there, like, your own amazing relationship with another, with yourself, the man that you choose to be in your children's life, that all has a huge impact. And if they can feel safe with you and with your partner, that's such a gift. And safety is really, can I be with what I'm, can I be with what's arising to me and know that it's safe to say if there's a quiver or there's a fear or there's, and it's going to be received. That and be received.
Yeah, and I also I feel like if children are seeing that from an early age as well, then that becomes normal. Like, that's the normal of expression of the emotional body. And it's almost like if parents were doing that, they're being more like children, because children so naturally do that until they get shut down. And it's interesting, I see a lot of parents trying to like teach their children certain things, but from the mind, and they're educating them, but then the children look somewhat confused because they're not receiving that emotionally or energetically from their parents. So it's a whole different ball game when you're actually living the values that you're trying to instill in your children. And the fast track to that.
It's a It's a little bit choppy. I don't know how that's affecting, not too much. We're kind of in and out
No,
of
a little
connection. I
bit,
think
but
the Bali
you're not too
connection's a
bad.
bit weird. Tara's frozen. So you froze for a while there. Yeah, I agree.
You froze
And
for
then,
a while as well. I think we're both glitching.
all right. So one of the things with that is when they're younger, there is an opportunity for more teachable moments, I find, because they're like these little humans who are learning about values. And for those of you who don't know, before I was a Tantrika, I had a business called Harmonious Mother, Harmonious Baby, and I wrote a couple of books. And I'd love to give one to anyone who feels called as a gift for Mother's Day. If you just type motherhood in the comments, then we'll send that to you. And so basically I was running this business after I did the Rudolf Steiner training, a certificate for in anthroposophy. And that really taught me so much about the incarnating soul and how to relate to your children with some principles that really make such a difference. So one of them I want to share now, and there's lots in the book. It's more for parents with younger children, is that when a child is exhibiting behavior that is difficult to be with, or that is impacting yourself or others in a negative way, that you don't just shame the behavior, but you comment on actually the virtue that they're displaying and then what value to bring in. So for instance, Sidel is extremely impatient, like me. So one of the things I would say to her is, I can see how determined you are and persistent, and I love that about you. And right now, can you please practice a little bit of patience while I get you ready, right? And then it's not shaming her, it's directing her to what I do want. And then as far as boundaries go, if she kept being impatient, and which she usually wouldn't once I said that, I would say, hey, you have two choices here. You can keep behaving this way and being impatient and throwing a tantrum and we don't go, or you can calm down, take a few deep breaths, practice patience, and we'll go and we'll have a good time. And then actually following through with the consequence that I've set. So that's where you're teaching healthy boundaries, by practicing them yourself. And that's where you're teaching children that it's okay not to be perfect. It's like, I can see you're excited. I can see there's a lot happening, and can we just bring patience in? So you're alerting them to their shadow without shaming it, and supporting an integration of something that's going to support them to, yes, celebrate the excitement and persistence and determination, but also balance that with some patience. And she was hilarious. Like, there was one time I was getting out of the car and I'm like, we were in a rush. I'm like, come on, Sidel, get your shoes on. She's like, good, you're excited, Mum. Be patient too. And I'm like, did you really just say that? So yeah, I'd like you to share a bit about what it was like. I know that I would have done it sometimes, but not to be shamed for character traits, and for me to kind of point out more of what you bring in rather than shaming what you're doing wrong. If you remember.
I think it was just a feeling of being like fully loved and accepted, and also appreciated for who I was, with you still, disciplining me. And yeah, I think that way of doing it, where you kind of like, you would bring light to my good values first, and then you would say the thing. I think that's a good way to communicate, not just with kids, but with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even with Rem, with my partner, he'll ask me, he'd be like, can you, comment on something I did right, maybe, before you say all the things I did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the way we love if we're loving our children unconditionally and bringing that unconditional love to a partner. So one of the practices in the practitioner training that I take couples through, which is beautiful, I just did it with a couple yesterday, is to express their needs to each other and make healthy requests. But I balance that so that before they share what they're needing or they're wanting to be different, they're sharing what they're grateful for. So, you know, it was so beautiful. The woman yesterday was like, I love how connected to your purpose you are and how much of a freedom lover you are and how dedicated you are to your community. And I also need to feel prioritized and important. And I need at least, you know, this amount of time per week where it's just for me. So yeah, it's like gratitude and then make a request. Highlight the existing virtues already in that person and then what they could bring more of into their life and into your lives together to make life more harmonious and enjoyable.
Beautiful. Nice one, ladies.
Yeah. And I think before we answer questions, because we'll probably get onto that soon, so I've got 5 minutes before the practitioner training live. Oh fuck, what was I going to say? There was something important. Oh yeah. So the other thing I think is important that I see other parents not doing and get very shocked by is that when Sadell points out to me to this day behavior that's not unconditionally loving, or I'm not being a good parent, or, you know, she'll tell me and I'm like, oh shit, I'm really sorry. And I think that's really important, to be able to say you're sorry and to be able to own your stuff and not defend yourself and go, oh, you know, you're right. I shouldn't have talked to you like that, or I wasn't being present, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it gives that almost that the experience of humility, but also of what it is to be human, you know. And the same thing applies to relationships outside parenthood, you know, in business and friendship. It's like when we can all do that with each other, then in a way we're kind of all reparenting each other as well. I feel that so much with, you know, within our friendship circle and within our business, how many of these tools that apply to parenthood but apply to each other as well, and we're just loving each other. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, she's the same. Like if I call her out on stuff, or Rem does, and Rem has told me this about her, she can, again, it's like through imitation. Before you head off, I think a big issue is that parents are not expressing and releasing the charge that's in their body, right? That primal energy. So children, when they're not getting what they want, they naturally throw a tantrum. When they're upset, they naturally cry. When they're angry, they naturally growl and want to hit something. When they're afraid, they might shake and come over for a cuddle. And so the first part of it is to always embrace that, which we've talked about. The other part is with your own emotional body. When you're upset, is to feel that upset through your body instead of getting upset with someone. But a lot of parents say to me, oh, I feel like my children will get scared if I'm expressing and releasing my feelings. Or they don't know how to do that. They think they have to go off and do it in quiet. So I'd love you to share with our audience what it was like hearing me just expressing and releasing raw emotion, and then for yourself, you practicing that.
Yeah, I think there was a time when, like, it never really scared me. I think there definitely does need to be a discernment with how intense you do get in front of them. Like, I think I can't remember any specific times, but I think it definitely could have been too much. But for the most part, you know, when you'd be doing that around us, sometimes we found it a little bit annoying, and we were like, why does mum have to do this? But then as I got older, that's definitely what, experiencing that through you is what eventually helped me to allow my own emotions to come through and to know what to do when things like that happen, because I, you know, experienced you doing it so often. And yeah, like, I think it's probably normal for a lot of kids to be like, what are you doing? This is annoying. Do you have to do this? But they probably will get it eventually.
That's good. And was it easier, would you advise parents to do it away from the kids in their own room for the discernment piece?
Actually, no. So there is times when it got intense, and it was when we were like trapped in the car. So I think there needs to be like maybe an asking, like, are you okay if I express some anger right now? Or just so they have the option of going somewhere else.
Or we can pull over and
pull over, we'll get out the car.
I'm so mad, get out of the car. I'm gonna express it really.
I like that.
Get out of the car. Just stomped around, slammed the doors, so mad.
Caleb and I would look at each other like, here she goes again.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Cars are a good one. I remember that with my previous husband when there was a time that we were in a car together and there was some strong emotion and he was like, can I express and release anger? And I was driving. I was like, no, I can't handle that right now. I'm driving and he is shaking. He's like, I need to express. I'm like, all right, I got it. You go for it. And he's like, whoa. So I can imagine without a warning, that could have been a little bit dangerous.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Sadell.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So shall we go to some questions? Is there anything else you two would like to share at this point? Okay. So first question, would express and release while pregnant affect the baby in any way?
Yeah, in a really good way, because so much of our emotions is held in our womb. And you want to just clear the womb as much as possible of anything that's not love and above. And I would definitely go gentler. Like I wouldn't be like throwing myself into the pillow quite as heartily as I do not pregnant. But yeah, it's beautiful. I went so deep into different emotional territories when I was pregnant with the kids. And it was a really nice time to clear out stuck energy and balance in. And, then also from the time they're in utero, they're getting used to being in a space where it's safe to express emotions and they're not feeling resistance. Because one of the biggest things that people struggle with who are suffering from anxiety, depression, a lot of relationship conflict, so many things in life is stuck energy in the body. Right. And it weighs them down and then they can't actually do the things that make them feel good or look after themselves. So there's like two things that need to happen in your life in order to feel good, but also look at your own shit. And that is to look after yourself really well, to choose what excites you and what lights you up, to, follow your pleasure, follow your bliss. And also to feel your pain and let that move through you. So when you're pregnant, if a child can feel like all this excitement and yumminess and pleasure and nourishment and good food, and besides the first 3 months, actually, all I felt like was party pies and dim sum. So I just have to admit that.
Got to be authentically honest here. There were dim sums and party pies.
A lot of dim, and then Kentucky with Jalen. So I don't know if I'd do that now. But anyway, so it's like life is a balance as a parent, as a human. And it's about being a role model and a vessel for self-love. Like love yourself enough to release all the shit that's inside and cry and be held and shake and roar. And also love yourself enough to be like, what's going to fucking light me up today? Like every single day I have is absolutely magical. And there's always fun and excitement, whether I'm riding my bike to the beach and having a coffee and then making love in the dunes or going out for lunch, going shopping, going for a hike, or a combination of all of that was yesterday. So it's like making every day magical, moving your body, getting all those good endorphins releasing and oxytocin and serotonin. Look after yourself when you're pregnant. Part of that is breathing out and releasing stuck energy that's been there for a long time. I found when I was pregnant, so much ancestral healing happened. You know, I had this deeper access to my mother's rage, my grandmother's, a lot of patterning that had gone down the line from all the women. So yeah, it's a good time, the most powerful time for healing and expansion, I think, because you're literally birthing something into the world. So there's a new part of you birthing as you're being initiated into this totally new phase of your life. And I think some mums, they don't actually, they're hanging on to their old life, but you need to actually step through the portal into motherhood and feel what that actually means. It's like you're not a maiden anymore. And you need to become capable of joyful sacrifice and attuning to someone as deeply as you attune to yourself. And that's a big task.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, so that's a yes. How to decide when to cancel everything and stick to duty when needing to process?
I think like some people get so caught in their process when they don't need to. And you can always come back to finishing it later. Just take enough time out to take the edge off. Right? Have you experienced that where you might be busy, but at least just because then you're going to be much more effective. Just take the time to just quickly go in your room and go, I hate you, motherfucker, I hate you, motherfucker. Punch some pillows, or have a little cry. You know, like 5 minutes could change the whole tone of your day.
Yeah, like really 5 minutes is like Rem and I had a discussion the other day and he gave me a reflection that kind of triggered a lot in me, and I saw myself kind of shutting down and I was like, why is this so intense for me? And I went in there for 5 minutes and like first I just felt sadness probably for a couple minutes. There was a few tears and then I shook a bit and then I sung a song, like brought in some joy, and then I went outside and I just felt so clear. And he was like, was that it? I was like, yeah, that's all I need.
Yeah, and I'm glad she mentioned the vocalization of song, because vocalization is so important to release stuck energy, but also vocalization of the song and of music is so beautiful and expansive. So vocalize. It cuts processing down so much. If you're just holding on, and I definitely still do it when my protective mechanisms are still up and it's never worth it, it just drags it on. But if you can move the energy, and then as she says, like once you take the edge off, bring in that joy and then connect to nature or do something that feels really good for you, it doesn't take long at all.
Love that. I had that before this call, actually. I was like, do I have time? Do I have time? I'm like, I've always got time. 5 minutes. Cried, heart's longing, sung, love myself. And I'll also add to that, you know, that it can take some practice also to go through a process quickly. And that's why doing it when it's there is so important, rather than, you know, suppressing it and not letting yourself feel when it's alive.
That is such a good point, because if you do it straight away, you've got the adrenaline there. But if you don't at least like feel that initial, and most of the time that's enough, then trying to take yourself back to the moment that triggered you, it's a lot harder, and it just kind of drags your energy down the longer you suppress.
And I think it's easier to get in your head and like go on to this repeat when you're like thinking back to the moment, and then you're in your mind, and then it's just like
true. And then
the mind comes in and tries to analyze it, figure it out through the mind. Maybe I don't need to feel this. Maybe I can just think my way through this. Never a good idea.
Yeah, ladies, straight away, just get it out. Get it off your chest. Get it out your body. Have a cry, punch some pillows, whatever you need to do.
And public toilets are great for that. If I'm out at a dinner party or wherever, static dance, and something comes up, I'm like, you know, it's one of those things where it's better out than in. It's like it feels gross in my body now, actually, to suppress my emotions. And I was a master suppressor. And now it's like, it's just so much better to suppress it. And like you were saying before, it's an act of self-love to do that for ourselves, to hold ourselves like we would with our children if they were sad, if they were scared. So we're just doing the same things for ourselves.
And just know that I talked briefly about depression before, and yeah, I've worked closely with depression, including with you in the much earlier years, Tara. And depression and repression, as you learned, is two sides of the same coin, right? It's like there's the more repressed energy there is, the more there is this heaviness and depression.
And the same with anxiety. When it's just being pushed down and then trying to be resolved mentally, the whole nervous system is just still like buzzing underneath that. Okay, so our next question is, I think this is coming from a husband. So for those of us with partners living with generational trauma, honestly, who isn't there these days? How can we show up for these mothers to support them in their own growth?
Well, just encouraging them to be with you when they're in a state that's difficult for them to be with without words, right? There's so much to be said for non-verbal communication. So if you can encourage them to shift from the verbal to the non-verbal and just hold them so they can cry, or just say, hey, I'm here, let it out. Or holding space, witnessing without judgment, and creating safety is so important. But that can be hard when someone's fucking mouthing off and making you the blame for their trauma that actually has nothing to do with you, right? So encourage them into non-verbal, hold space for them. And, you know, at the end of the day, they need to be dealing with it. So encourage them to see someone who can help them, a good practitioner.
Yeah, beautiful. And our last question is, how do we balance disciplining our children while making sure our kids still respect us and don't take advantage of our kindness?
Yeah, I think we addressed that earlier when I was saying about, you know, respecting them enough to say, hey, acknowledge where they're at, but then also bring in what they could, what could strengthen them as people and could bring more harmony and love. Did you have anything else about that in terms of the way that I balanced respecting you and disciplining you?
No, I think that's pretty much covers it. I think just like as well, when you are disciplining, coming from a place of love and not a place of like disciplining when your emotional body is activated. That was never as well received as if you spoke to us lovingly.
Yeah, it's like being authoritative without being authoritarian. Authoritarian is like this power over. Authoritative is, hey, this isn't okay. You're still loving them. This isn't okay. Can we shift to this, right? And another thing there is, one of my pet hates is when my parents used to do this. It's like, why can't I? Because I said so. Or do this. Why? Because I said so. Like, don't ever fucking say because I said so. And my dad was actually great also at not doing that. And he would have great discussions with us. Like, you know, he got us juicing way before it got popular. And I remember being like, ew, it was like celery, beetroot, apple, ginger. I'm like, oh, this is gross. Why do I have to drink this? Now, he could have just said, because I said so, right? But he said, because all of the reasons why it's really good for me, when he told us not to ever drink soft drink or Coke. And we're why? Not because I said so, but because it's going to burn your insides, and told me how Coca-Cola takes marks off driveways, oil marks. And he's like, if you think about that going into your body, would you really want that in your body? And yeah, I think I always did that.
Need to choose it for themselves.
Yeah.
Not just because mum or dad says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And we do have one more question, which is, what are your thoughts around no contact with toxic mothers?
Well, I think it's a good idea if she can't get out of that, and if it's really abusive. I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think children always need their mothers, so if there's a way for her to be supported, and it has to come from the kids, not from the parent, right? Because you might be thinking she's toxic and your children are loving being with them. So say to them, are you scared when you're with your mum? Like, get it out of them. And sometimes children are too young, or they can't quite, they're loving their mother, even though the mother's abuse. Those situations. But don't make assumptions. It's like, how do you feel when you're with your mum? What's your experience of your mum? And the more that we can do that in general, like draw out of our children rather than putting in. Obviously, there will be lots of teachable moments. To need. I don't think tell a lot of things that Sadell came to me wanting to do, or, you know, she had 27 pets when she was like 12.
I remember that.
And there's a really good reason. Well, now I want to bearded dragon. Why? Why do you want to be a dragon?
I needed this animal to be friends with this animal, and this animal needs a pet, so that one also needs a pet.
And she looked after them so well. I never had to do anything, and so responsible. So, you know, there's a deep listening that's available, that you can create this beautiful world for your child where they grow up knowing that the impossible is possible, knowing that they're the creators of their reality, knowing that they're listened to and attuned to. And now she, you know, her first relationship's at 19, she didn't settle. And he treats her like an absolute queen. Like, we're at their house right now. It's in her ideal place on land. He's sexy as all get out. He's romantic. He's affectionate. He's smart. He's into all the same things as her, because that's the vibrational frequency that she operates from. Of like, I am worthy of what I want. I'm worthy of what my soul truly longs for.
And just to add as well, when you were talking about like being with a partner as a parent, that showing your kids, like you being with Matisse made such a huge difference in the way that I looked at men, and I think the way that I was able to then attract and meet Rem after that. Like before, you know, when you were with these other guys, it was kind of like, oh fuck, man, like look at all these guys. And yeah, seeing the way that Matisse loved you and just what that could look like really opened me to what was possible, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. And in defense to Aaron, because a lot of Aaron, she never really got to spend time with him because we were in Bali. But yeah, pre Aaron, definitely.
He was another good one.
He was a great one.
We love Aaron.
Yeah, honor to the beautiful men who love our children. Thank you so much for everything you shared. You're so amazing.
I love you, Giselle. Thanks for showing up on your first live with us.
No worries.
So anyone who wants... It's kind of cutting out. I don't know if you guys can still...
Far from the router.
Maybe that's why it's bad.
You're back.
Are we frozen? We're here again? Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Taran. Thanks for the beautiful impact you've had on both of my kids' lives, being like their fairy godmother, and, you know, getting support from your friends. So important. I feel like my children have been parented by a lot of different people. Beautiful women who have taught them different things. And yeah, if you want my ebook for free, The 7 Ingredients to Soulful Parenting, especially if you've got little ones, I think it'll be really helpful. So just comment motherhood in the comments and we'll send that over to you. Also, we've got a free 8-day journey. If you haven't already opted in for that, just write Tantra 101 in the comments. That is friggin' amazing. It's going to give you a foundation on boundaries, asking for what you need, expressing and releasing, a lot of the things we've talked about.
Absolutely. 2 amazing, amazing resources.
And you'll be seeing a lot more of this a little as time goes on.
Oh, yes, you will.
Love you, Tara.
Love you, ladies. Love you, Sadell. Love you, Raven. Love you, everyone.
Love you.
Bye. Love